Oh, welcome back to Niners Nightly. Larry Krueger with you, and joining us on the UMA guest line to talk a little bit about the Titans is Terry McCormack, who's a great follow on X. Terry MC13 on X, the publisher of the Titans Insider, and he is with us to chop it up and talk a little Titans. Terry, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Larry?
I'm doing great. You know, the Titans coming off a win. How'd it look? How they feeling?
Well, it's certainly different than what we've come to expect from this team over the last few years. Uh, 49ers are sitting in a great position going against the Titans because I'll throw this little fun fact at you. It has been 54 games since the Titans have won back to back.
Wow. It's been a while.
Been a while since 2022.
How would you describe where the organization is at? Because the GM Mike Borgonzi, you got the head coach now, the interim head coach Mike McCoy. They're obviously looking for a new direction. A lot of people think they're going to be looking towards Robert Saleh, possibly in the offseason.
Yeah, I've heard his name mentioned. I've heard
What do
his
you
name
think?
mentioned along with Matt Nagy, Mike McCarthy. I think they would like someone who has previous head coaching experience, given that with Brian Callahan, he had never been a head coach before, never been a play caller. They had a first time head coach, first time play caller, first time offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, and special teams coach last year. So, and then they wonder why it didn't work out because they didn't have enough experience in the coaching room. I think the Titans are in a situation, Larry, where the organization can bet, if you want to put it nicely, they're in flux. If you want to put it bluntly, they're a mess. And until they get some stability, I don't see them going very far with any coach, any GM, or any quarterback.
What is the issue? I mean, is it the ownership? Is it because Rand Carthon had a pretty sterling reputation when he walked into that situation, and he just didn't seem like he was given very much time to turn it around.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where if you haven't figured it out and don't figure it out quickly, they move on from you. And I think that's directly attributed to ownership and Amy Adams Strunk. She has made a habit of, people get her ear and they're the flavor of the month. And then, once you do something and fall out of favor, you're gone and the next person is in line to reap the benefits of her favor.
Do you think whoever they go with next would come in above the general manager Borgonzi, or do you think Borgonzi is going to be the guy that's utilized as the architect?
Well, I think Borgonzi needs to get a shot because for the first time in about 5 years, they've got what looks to be a fairly solid draft class. Beyond Cam Ward, who the jury is still out on, they've got a third-round pick in safety Kevin Winston that they're high on. They've got 3 fourth-round picks. Alec Eilmanor, whom you're probably familiar with, having played at Stanford.
Sure.
Chimere Dike, who has been a revelation on punt and kickoff returns, and Gunnar Helm, tight end out of Texas. That all 3 of those guys are contributors right away as rookies. So I think they feel like the 2025 draft class has some potential. Let me give you another gruesome stat to go with the 54 games of no consecutive wins. This team currently has, from the draft classes of 2020 through 2023, they have exactly 3 players on the roster plus 1 more on injured reserve.
Wow, that's not a lot.
No, it's not. It's Peter Skoronski, it's Chig Okonkwo, it's Tajay Spears, and it's Will Levis on IR.
Wow, it just shows the tough job they've had as far as putting this thing together via the draft. Let's talk about the offense for a second, because I saw a story that shocked me last week. I saw a report out of Tennessee saying that the Titans may not be set at quarterback, that they may actually look at another quarterback at the top of the draft in round 1 this year. What do you think of that? There's instability, but that's a little crazy. I mean, they just took Cam Ward number 1 overall. Is it possible they've soured on Cam?
I don't think so. And he's not had a great rookie year, but there's not a lot around him. You see the occasional flash. I heard somebody on one of the local radio stations here say that he's kind of on a Bryce Young trajectory and trying to play that up as good. I'm like, really? Shouldn't you aim for a little higher than that? But that's kind of where the team is. I mean, I think Cam Ward has potential, but he's not the type of quarterback that is going to elevate the people around him and put the team on his back very often, at least not at this stage of his career. That may come in time, who knows? But, there are only a handful of those guys, and you know who they are: Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Lamar, and the list is pretty short. But there are plenty of quarterbacks where if you put a good line in front of them and you give them a couple of good receivers and a running game, they can work and work well. Brock Purdy out there in San Francisco is probably one of the best examples of that. The Titans, well, I mean, as far as Cam Ward, I think they're still in on Cam Ward, but this is what I would do. There's a lot of talk that, that Levis wants out, or they would trade Levis to get pennies on the dollar for him being a second-round pick 2 years ago. I honestly, unless Cam Ward shows me something over the last 4 weeks that says he's made great strides, you're going to have a brand new coach and staff come in. I would slant it toward Cam Ward, but I would at least with Will Levis under contract for one more year, I'd say, okay, if you can win the job, go win it, because this is a team that needs pieces. They need to put the best players that they can at every position out there. And honestly, I would also add a veteran to that mix. It wouldn't hurt to bring a Jameis Winston, Jacoby Brissett type of guy in to, at least be a veteran sounding board for Cam Ward, and also to push him a little bit, because Brandon Allen, who was out there with the 49ers, he wasn't going to push Cam Ward. He's strictly a backup guy.
No doubt. No doubt. Yeah, he's a backup. He's a decent backup, but he's a backup strictly. Yeah, I mean, that's interesting. What do you think of their offensive line? I mean, if you look at it on paper, you say, well, Skoronski at left guard was a number one pick. Zeitler, I has some pedigree. J.C. Latham was a number one pick. I always liked Cushenberry at LSU. He's been around the block a little bit. Dan Moore came over from the Steelers. How do you view their offensive line? How's their offensive line grading out?
Well, yesterday notwithstanding, when they did an outstanding job running the football for the first time all season, Tony Pollard had 161 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. And they also held Myles Garrett to 1 sack, wonder of wonders with that. But up until then, the offensive line had been part of the problem. Skoronski's played well. He's in his 3rd year. He is on the way to being one of the better players on the team, if he's not there already. Latham got hurt early. He's been a little bit of a disappointment here in year 2. I think that they thought shifting him over to the right side where he played at Alabama would be beneficial to him. He trimmed down, lost some weight, got in better shape, but he was been bothered by a hip injury, and that's kind of set him back, and he's not played consistently well. Zeitler appears to be running on fumes. He's on a 1-year deal. He's 35 years old. They're going to have a new right guard next year. Cushenberry, coming off an Achilles, has not played really well. And in fact, he's been out with a foot injury the last couple of weeks, and the run game has picked up since journeyman Corey Levin, who's been a backup on the team for much of his career, filled in, and the offense and the run game in particular seemed to find a groove. And then Dan Moore, they brought him in from Pittsburgh. They knew what they were getting with him. He's an average offensive tackle, but the play at tackle had been so bad ever since Taylor Lewan retired that, even average would be an upgrade over what they've had.
When you look at the Titans as far as their weapons, I mean, I am an Orris, big receiver who can run, but DK can really run. Would you say DK is the downfield threat, and who would you describe as Ward's number one option?
Ward's number one, that's a good question. It was supposed to have been Calvin Ridley, but he suffered a broken fibula. He's out for the year, and he was inconsistent when he was out there. The truth of the matter is they don't really have a number one type receiver. They've got a lot of number 3s and number 4s. DK is a guy who does have speed. He's really the only guy with Ridley out that brings a speed element to the game. And I think that's one of the big problems of the offense is there's nobody you have to game plan for. There's nobody that opposing defensive coordinators look at like with the 49ers, like with Christian McCaffrey or back in the day with Deebo Samuel or with George Kittle, and they go, if we don't stop this guy, we're not going to win on Sunday. There's nobody on the Titans roster that teams fear, and there really hasn't been since the days of Derrick Henry and A.J. Brown.
The two-headed monster in the backfield. I mean, I know, Spears is a good young back, but Pollard's coming off his career day. He's the guy who's also getting paid. What do you think? I mean, Pollard was kind of used in a committee prior to coming to Tennessee. What's the rhyme or reason to how they utilize their backs?
Well, they seem to want Pollard to be the guy that carries the load, but as the season has gone on and they've been running a lot of 11 personnel and, more than anybody in the league, really. And Spears is kind of the third down back and also the guy who spells Pollard on occasion. So Spears had started to get a little bit more of the work, but then Sunday they decided to go back to Pollard, and it paid off in a nice way against the Browns as they had their best rushing output of the season. And prior to yesterday, I haven't looked at the stats to see if they moved up, but prior to yesterday, they were dead last in the league in rushing.
Yeah, I mean, it's that, and which is obviously never helps a young quarterback. Let's talk about the other side of the ball because they do have some momentum on the defensive side of the ball. What do you think of this defense? I mean, this is a on paper, it's a 3-4 under front. You got some good players up front: Tavondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons. My God, Simmons is as good as it gets. And then Cedric Gray. I mean, he was a terrific linebacker at North Carolina. He's a guy that can make a lot of tackles, and Jihad Ward is kind of a dependable veteran. It seems like he's gotten nothing but better and better as his career has gone on. How would you describe what they are on D?
Well, the defense has been actually pretty impressive given how many pieces that they've sold off or lost to injury. Simmons is having a career year. I mean, he is probably one of, if not the best defensive tackle in the league. And even though he's on an atrocious Titans team, he deserves to be considered for first team All Pro this year. He's already got, I think, 8.5 sacks, very, very near his career high. One of his goals is to get double-digit sacks this year. He lost some weight in the offseason, got himself into good playing shape, and he has really been the one go-to guy on that defense. You mentioned Ward. He's been a solid guy as a journeyman. Same thing with Arden Key. Cedric Gray, Cody Barton have been decent in the middle as inside linebackers. The real problem has been in the secondary. It's not so much at safety where they've got veterans like Amani Hooker and Xavier Woods, and now they're bringing along Kevin Winston, the third-round pick. But it's really been cornerback where they have shuffled through 5 or 6 guys. They traded Jarvis Brownlee. They traded Roger McCreary. They put L'Jarius Sneed, who was a tremendous bust for them, on IR. They're going with, I think it's 2 rookies and 2 waiver claims at the cornerback positions right now.
Wow. Sneed, it's funny. That was a big signing away from Kansas City, and it just didn't work out. I mean, it's like they got him at the tail end. What do you think of, the former Cal Bear, the former Bruin, the draft pick, Olufemi Oladejo? I know he's hurt now, but what'd you think of him?
Well, he was a guy that was just learning the edge position for most of his career in college. He was an inside linebacker. Right. He certainly looks the part physically, but he's got a lot to learn. And being injured and missing all these valuable reps that he could have gotten as an edge rusher on a team that desperately needs personnel at that position, it's really cost him and set him back. I think they're somewhat hopeful that he could get back before the end of the year, but there's no guarantee. Even if he could get back for just the last couple of games, it certainly would benefit him going into year 2 next year.
I was really surprised the 49ers and Titans didn't hook up on a trade. I thought Arden Key would come to the Niners at the trade deadline. There was also a lot of smoke around Simmons. You mentioned that they moved some corners and they moved, McCreary to the Rams. Did they get close to moving Simmons? Well, I know Key had a quad right around that time. He might not have been eligible to be dealt due to his injury status. Do you know
Yeah.
if how close they came to making another move up front?
Well, I think they made Simmons pretty much off limits because they feel like he's the type of guy that they want to build around. Now, whether that is sound logic, I don't know because he's playing at a fantastic level right now and has all season long. And he's been the best player on the team for the last couple of years, ever since Derrick Henry departed. But let me go ahead and say this. He's also 28 years old. So by the time you finally rebuild this thing and get back to where you're in contention again, he could be 30 or 31 years old. And is he still going to be playing at a high level now, at that point? So the other thing, you brought up Arden Key. I think having the quad injury hurt him the same way that having the hamstring injury before he fractured his fibula hurt Calvin Ridley's trade stock. So that's a couple of guys that they might have moved on from for extra draft capital that they weren't able to move, probably with their injury problems playing a role.
Denard Wilson, what's his scheme? Does he bring a lot of blitzes? Or what's his some Robert Saleh's had both his high water and low water mark as far as blitz this year since they've lost Bosa and the Niners have had to be creative. How about Wilson? How often does he bring 5 and 6 man pressures?
He likes to bring pressure. In fact, yesterday, safety Kevin Winston had their best pressure rate coming off blitzes from the nickel position. They've been going with more of a big nickel package ever since they lost Jalen Armour Davis to an Achilles injury. So they've been forced to put Marcus Harris, the former Cal Bear, on the outside, moving him from the nickel. And then playing Kevin Winston is like a big nickel. So Denard Wilson does like to blitz. He does like to create pressure. And he almost has to because outside Simmons, there aren't a lot of natural pass rushers in this group that are going to get to the quarterback consistently. So I feel like that I'll say this. With what he's had to work with, Denard Wilson has done a good enough job that whoever the new head coach is coming in probably should at least interview him for the chance to keep his job going forward.
Who is their leader on D? Would you call it? Is it Gray? Would you say he's the vocal leader? I mean, I know he's the guy leading them in tackles most weeks.
No, Gray's still a young player, and he's starting to find his voice. But Jeffrey Simmons is the leader of the defense. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. In fact, he's probably the leader of the team because your quarterback's a rookie, your running backs and your receivers. Nobody really has stepped forward to distinguish themselves. The offensive line's not been consistent. If I were going to say there was a spokesman for the different position groups, it would be Simmons for the defense and probably Skoronski already for the offense.
Interesting. Now, some people say that Ward is a unique guy in that he's a ridiculously hard worker and wants to be the leader. Have you guys seen that from him? That there's talk is that he's one of those guys that he's just a grinder and he's all ball.
He is. He's a guy that, puts in the work, comes in early, stays late, does all the things that you want him to do. I think he's a little hard on himself. Like even after the win yesterday, statistically, he got way outplayed by Shedeur Sanders. And I think that really, he kind of took that to heart. And he almost, in his post-game press conference, it felt like he didn't let himself enjoy a rare win for this team because he was fretting about the fact that he missed some open receivers and didn't play as well as he thought he should have.
Do you think the Titans come off of this win and get a bunch of juice out of this, or do you think they start feeling pretty good about themselves and roll in Sunday to Levi's maybe a little content?
I would be stunned if they won this game. I'll just say that. I haven't seen what Vegas thinks about it, but I cannot imagine that the 49ers, any scenario where they're not a heavy favorite going into the game.
Two last ones before we let you go. Juwan Jennings is a free agent, and Jennings obviously was a great player at Tennessee, and he's very, very popular in Knoxville. I don't know if he's popular in Nashville, but he's popular in Knoxville. Any talk of the Titans going after a guy like Jennings in the offseason? It seems like And what is their momentum? I know it's a very college football centric area of the country, where there's probably more people walking around talking Vols than Titans all throughout the state. But what kind of momentum do the Titans have as a franchise there? Could you see them going after a former Vol like Jennings to try to put people in the seats?
It's one of those things that's been discussed, especially on talk radio and among the fans a lot, because Juwan Jennings, a lot of people are fond of him because of his Tennessee ties. And also, he is a Middle Tennessee guy. He is from Murfreesboro, which is about 30 miles south of Nashville, one of the bedroom communities of Nashville. And he is a guy who certainly made his mark at the University of Tennessee. So there is definitely a segment of the fan base that would love a homecoming for him. The question is, does he want to leave the good established culture of the 49ers and try to come and carve something new out with the Titans, who are in the desperation throes of a rebuild right now?
Well, what do you give me your national perspective on Brock Purdy and what the 49ers have going over here? I'm always interested to know what people feel or how people think about Purdy. Is it seems like there's a full gamut of opinions out there on him.
Yeah, I think I was really impressed with Purdy earlier in his career. When he got them to the Super Bowl in just his second or third season, I think it was. I thought that was very, very impressive. And especially for a guy who had been the last pick in the draft. And of course, when Rand Carthon was here, he was a big Brock Purdy guy and thought that thought it was a great pick, and obviously it was. I think as with a lot of quarterbacks, when you have an injury or when you slip back a little bit, then people start to question, well, was he really worth all that he was paid? And, this year he's had a lot of injury problems, and then Mac Jones stepped in and kept things rolling. I would say much maligned Mac Jones in terms of, his checkered past with the Patriots and the Jaguars. But certainly I think Brock Purdy is still in the upper half of quarterbacks in the National Football League.
Terry McCormack with us. Last one, Terry, and we appreciate your time. Do you think they're, on their to-do list? Obviously, the Titans would love to come west, get a victory, and go home. But do you think on the to-do list is some kind of informal meeting between the Titans, either their ownership or their general manager and Robert Saleh? I don't know what the exact rules are on informal meetings, but we're at that time of the year where the teams that don't have coaches are starting to formulate their plans and their lists and their priorities. And I would imagine a guy like Saleh is going to be on Tennessee's list. You mentioned Nagy. There's no question Borgonzi's got major ties to the Kansas City organization. So Nagy does make perfect sense. But what do you think? Is Borgonzi going to lead the coaching search, or is it done above his head?
Well, I think Borgonzi will lead the coaching search, and then Chad Brinker and Amy Adams Strunk, the owner, will sign off on it and also be involved in that process. Honestly, it needs to be Borgonzi leading the search, and they need to take his recommendation. I would, say that Brinker's, response to that would probably be sound. Amy Adams Strunk, well, I'm not so sure there. But Sunday pregame probably wouldn't hurt for Borgonzi to shake Robert Saleh's hand and at least have a little get-to-know session for about 5 minutes, as coaches and officials and all chit-chat pregame just about, life in general.
Yeah, so basically, if you get to the Niner game early Sunday and you're sitting in the upper deck and you got nothing better to do, you may want to look for Robert Saleh's shiny tan head when he comes out and just follow him around on the binoculars and just take note of who Robert Saleh is talking to pregame. And if you see a Mike Borgonzi, you heard it here first. Terry, thanks for jumping in. You said you'd be shocked if the Titans get the win. I would as well, but you know what? In the NFL, you're two turnovers and a bad play on special teams away from a defeat. So you just never know. But are you making the trek out here?
I should be making the trek out there. That's the plan.
All right. Well, hey, if we see you in the press box, come over and say hello. Thanks for jumping on Niners Nightly and giving us a little breakdown.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Terry McCormack with us as we talk Titans here on Niners Nightly. More straight ahead on the Sports Leader.